inspired Poe to write his psychological murder mystery, The Telltale Heart. On the evening of April 6, 1830, the murder of 82-year-old Captain Joseph White, a retired shipmaster and trader, shocked the residents of the small town of Salem. The main themes are madness and sanity, the pressure of guilt, and the passage of time.
True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses. Not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insults. For his gold, I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone and inquiring how he has passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept.
Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quick, and did mine. Never before that night have I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph to think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secrets or deeds. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, But no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened through the fear of robbers. And so I knew that he could not see the door opening, and I kept pushing on it steadily. I had my hand in and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang out of bed, crying out,
Who's there?
I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still, sitting up in bed, listening, just as I've done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror.
It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no. It was a low, stifled sound that arose from the bottom of the soul. When overcharged with awe, I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it was welled up in my own bosom, deepening with a dreadful echo. The terrors that distracted me, I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and I pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew he had been lying there awake ever since that first slight noise when he had turned in his bed. His fears had ever since been growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy himself causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself,
It's nothing but the wind in the chimney, or a mouse crossing the floor,
or,
it's merely a cricket who's made a single chirp.
yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with those substitutions, but he could not. He found all in vain, because death and approaching stalked his black shadow before him, enveloped the victim. And it was in that mortal influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel,
although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing the old man lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a simple dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot out from the crevice and fell full upon the vulture eye. It was wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it all with a perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, such as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet, I refrained and I kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. In the meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. Do you mark me well? I've told you that I am nervous. So I am. And now, in the dead silence of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that house, such a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. But yet, for some minutes longer, I kept still and remained motionless. The beating grew louder and louder and louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now, a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and I leaped into the room. He only shrieked once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and I pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the walls. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and I examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand on the heart and I held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. The old man was dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will so no longer when I describe the wise precaution I took for the concealment of the body.
The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First, I dismembered the corpse. I took off the head, the arms, and the legs. I then tore up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so carefully, so cunningly that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. And there was nothing to wash out. There was no blood spot of any kind, nothing whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. And when I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the house, there came a knocking at the door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? And there entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard in the night by the neighbors. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused, and they, the officers, they had been deputy to search the premises. I smiled. For what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, oh, it was my own in a dream. The old man, absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures secured, undisturbed. And in the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues. And I, myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own chair upon the spot which beneath reposed the corpse of the victim. Oh, the officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, we chatted of familiar things. Still, ere long I felt myself growing pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and they chatted. The ringing became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definiteness until at length I discovered the ringing was not within my ears. Oh, no doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased. What could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much as a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. Oh, I gasped for breath, yet the officers heard it not. Oh, I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose. I argued about trifles in a high key with violent gesticulations, but still the noise steadily increased. Oh, God, what could I do? I foamed, I waved, I swore, I took my chair, which I grated upon the boards. But the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder and louder and louder, and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. God, no. No! They heard, they suspected, they knew!
They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this duration. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark! Louder! 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 Louder!
Dissemble no more! I admit the deed! Tear up the blanks here! Here it is the beating of his hideous heart!